Hi there, it's Ron Garneau again, and I just want to let you know that I've been selling in Calgary residential homes since 2001, and recently we've had a number of questions from our clients that we'd like to answer for you today. We're going to be doing a series of these question answers, and I hope that you like it. Subscribe if you do, and watch more of our videos.
Why do you need to have financing in place before looking for a house?
Okay, so the number one thing, the very first thing a person should do is actually get their financing lined up for a couple of reasons. One is so you can get a locked-in interest rate. I'm going to show you many ways on how to save money in there so you can get a type of mortgage open or closed, whether it's fixed or variable. Second thing is you use it for negotiating. So if you are pre-approved, then it gives me more confidence when we put in the offer that we can have one less condition, hopefully, in the seller's mind that you already have a qualified buyer. And also, you'll know what you can spend. So we stay within your budget and don't get you into homes that you can't afford.
Are there affordable housing options for first-time home buyers?
First off, you may want to consider renting if your value is right. But if you're going to get your first-time buyer, one is get into a location that will allow you to be within your budget. That's very important. The type of house, timing, how long are you going to be there? So if you're going to be there for less than a year, you might want to only rent. But if you're thinking of getting your first time house, you might say, okay, I'm going to have a 5-year plan as a stepping stone to get to your next house.
What does it mean to be house poor?
When you have no money at the end of the month. And I remember that very specifically when I was in my first house. At the end of the day, I was so proud that I owned a house and I had a car and all this, but everything was financed or in a mortgage. And at the end of the month, there was no extra money. So the danger on that, if you lose your job, you could literally be 1 month away of having to give it all up.
What should you look for when buying a new home?
Number one, location. Where's your friends? Where do you work? Where's your family? Second, what are your needs? So how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms? Do you want a fixer-upper? Do you want to move in right away?
Are there any common mistakes people make when getting their mortgage?
You mess up your mortgage. Well, that's a very good thing because when you get pre-qualified, they're going to give you some things that you need to do before. So to qualify, and even though you've been approved for a mortgage, there will still be a few other things. So don't go and buy another car. Don't be buying a lot of things on your credit that's going to throw your balance off. So make sure that you stay within your budget. If anything, keep your status quo or make everything better before you actually have to get your mortgage.
How can I be realistic with what features I will get in a home with my budget?
Number one thing is we are going to have a market analysis with me, and we'll sit down and go through all of your needs, wants, timing, budget, and we'll make sure that we have everything set up ahead of time before we even set up a plan.
Do you need a real estate agent when buying new construction homes?
Yes, I would definitely get involved in your buying of a new house as well because we sold hundreds of houses and we know what to look for. So with a new house, often you'll go directly to the builder, but we can do a market analysis to make sure that house is priced right, and keep in mind that a lot of new homes may not include other features like a regular house. It may not include your landscaping, may not have a fence or the deck or window coverings or appliances, so you'll get a standard package. So we can actually go through and show you the benefits of buying new and whether you should buy used.
How can you price your home to actually sell?
If you want a price to sell, use my expertise. We'll go through the database of what is actually happening in the neighborhood currently in the last month or two so we can see what's actually on the market. Second, show you what's sold. And another bonus that most people don't take me up on is we'll do a tour of all the active homes in the market so you can see how your house shows compared to others and price it accordingly.
How do you handle a lowball offer?
It depends on one of both things. Are you representing the buyer or the seller? If I'm representing the buyer, I will definitely tell them that we will present the offer because we never know how it's going to go. And that's where my expertise comes in, is how do we manipulate that offer, getting that low ball, and how do we convince the seller that that's right? If it's a seller, never get offended by it because some people, their natural reaction is to get offended by the low ball offer, but you never know where it's going to end up. So for example, we've had some where they might get into a lowball offer, then maybe get into competing offer, and all of a sudden the whole game changes and that lowball offer becomes a very high offer because they were testing it. So the whole thing is an offer is an offer.
How do you prepare to host an open house?
Preparing for an open house is pretty easy. What I normally do is I will advertise it ahead of time, and then we'll also create some feature sheets. We put out a whole bunch, at least 20 signs guiding a person through the neighborhood so you can get to the house. And also, once in a while, if we have time and the weather conditions are good, we also have a Remax balloon we sometimes will put up to kind of attract more people in as well. But lots of signs, advertising ahead of time.
How should a homeowner prepare for an open house?
When a seller is going to prepare their home for the open house, one, clean. Clean like you've never cleaned before. Second, have it so it's presentable so we can just walk through the place. I always say we're a big person, put your elbows up, walk around so people can actually get through. If you have to step over a box or around a table, move it. Third, turn on all the lights, open up the drapes, make it inviting. If you want to bake cookies, you want to put on the little smelly candles, fantastic. Every little thing, but not too much of a smell. You don't want to turn people off. When people come in, the very first thing that I tell them is do the smell test. So if you walk in a house, you get the aroma and it smells like smoke or pets, whatever, that's going to turn people off. Just make your house presentable.
Do you usually get offers from hosting an open house?
You may. Actually, the best way to do it, if we strategically do it, that's one of the things I love about open houses, is often you'll have other people in. If someone is interested in the house and there's a third party that comes in, now all of a sudden that's your competition. So sometimes you want to have the open house to create some extra competition. So you could get an offer.
Why do some listings sit on the market forever and expire? How do you prevent that?
The number one reason why most homes will expire is simple. It's not priced right. So we have sold grow-ops, we sold mansions, and everything in between. And so everything will sell. There's an old saying, there's a bum for every seat. Find out which bum needs to go into that seat and sell it. If your price is not right, it's not going to sell. If there's anything specific about a house that won't sell, we'll try to address it and fix it.
How do days on the market affect the price of your home?
The days on the market are really important because if a house has been on the market now for 10 days, it's still fresh. If you do a price adjustment, it's still fresh, getting into that new price category for that person. If it's 100 days on the market, usually the very first question that people will ask is, what's wrong with the house?
Which home improvements make you the most money when you sell?
Curb appeal to get people in. Kitchens and bathrooms are your number one. And basically that's where the big money makers are. So if you're going to put most of your money in, clean, paint goes a long way, carpet goes a long way. Your big ticket items are kitchen and bathrooms.
Should you let your realtor use a lockbox?
Absolutely. For many reasons. So one is, sometimes if you see the lockbox, some people drive by and see that lockbox and say, hey, that place is for sale. I'm curious. Second, with the lockbox versus having a code or letting people in, the lockbox will keep track of everyone that's actually gone into the house and when. So we can track if someone was in, left the doors open, we know who's been in and when.
How do you buy and sell at the same time?
Having a plan set up ahead of time. So buying and selling at the same time. So the number one thing going back to your finances is can you afford to have two houses? Do you have to sell your house first? What is your timing like? Right, so setting up a whole plan will all come into place if you put the plan in place. Knowing what you're going to sell for, what are your timing like, what are the markets like, and when you're buying, what is that criteria that you have for that new house, right? So is that real as well? So you want to make a realistic sell plan and buy plan and tie them together.
How do you sell locally and move out of town?
How do you sell locally and move out of town? I guess that's the same. It's no different than, the big difference is if you're moving out of town is what are those markets conditions like there? And it's the same plan. So you still have to sell a house and buy a house. The ideal is if you sell high and you move into a lower market buying low, then you're ahead. But in some cases, say if you're moving from Calgary to Toronto, and you have to make sure that things are realistic, that you're selling in a certain market and buying into a new market.
What are closing costs and who has to pay them?
So with the closing costs, some of the main closing costs, obviously, there's going to be the commissions for the realtors once it sells. You're going to have lawyer. The lawyer fees are somewhere, these are going to be roundabout numbers for usually around $1,000. If you're buying a house, you might have to do some home inspection. There also might be some other closing costs. You have to make sure your taxes are paid up, if there's going to be a payout or payout penalty on your mortgage, and some of those other items that you have to look for, moving costs and things like that.
What happens if the buyer wants to negotiate for home repairs?
When people usually, if buyers do a home inspection and they come up with some additional items. So unless these things are already disclosed or known about, things will come up. So unless they know the age or condition of the roof, the furnace, it could be some leaks, it could be some water, it could be some other issues in the house. When these things come up, the buyers have a choice of one of three things. They can either accept all these things the way they are, they can renegotiate and say, I want to have a certain kind of settlement or have something fixed, or they can use that and say, I'm done, we're walking away.
What do you do about unpermitted upgrades, rooms, or additions?
Okay, so the unpermitted ones as a seller, so what we try to do ahead of time with the seller when we're prepping the sale is to let people know of where they're at with things. If we know that it doesn't have egress windows in the basement, if they have an illegal suite by the zoning that's on the title, if we go through other things that may pop up during the inspection. So those things, the more you know about ahead of time, is best to disclose ahead of time. And then that way the buyers aren't surprised by it, and also it looks like you're more credible as well. One thing you find is when some of these things use an egress window in the basement as a sample, some places you can still advertise it as a bedroom because that was code back in the day. Today's code, no. And the reason why these little windows are there, a lot of times people think, oh, I could crawl out of there. But it's for safety reasons. It's not you getting out, it's the firemen for getting in case there is a fire.
How do you market your listings?
So with the marketing of the listings, what we do is multifaceted. So the one thing we do is we do really good video. We do 3D shots. We do the walkthrough. We have a professional camera crew. We have marketing people that help us to actually put things both in print, online, and also we do word of mouth. We send it out to different databases. So there's multifaceted marketing aspects we do with all of our marketing.
What is the difference between a broker, single agent, transaction agent, dual agency, and how does it affect buyers or sellers?
That's a great question. So when they talk about dual agency, or what they call transaction brokerage now, is whether the seller or whether the agent can represent the buyer and the seller. The answer in Alberta is yes. So with that, there's a few things you have to look at. One is, if we get into that situation, we have to disclose that we're representing the buyer and the seller. So what we try to do with the seller is set up a plan where they know what their timing is like, how much money they want to get, all those things there. So if I'm representing both, there's things we can't negotiate is by saying, taking advantage of one person at the forsaking of the other person for whether it's buyer or seller. Disclosure. So there's certain information we can disclose and some not. So in some cases, the buyers will sometimes write a nice letter as we're a family of 4 and we really like your house. So how much information do you want the other person to know? So in doing this, we have to treat both parties fair, but also know what our limitations are on how to negotiate, what to disclose, and how do we get both parties happy. And that's really what the goal is at the end. The buyers want the house, the sellers want to sell. How do you merge it together?
How many homes have you sold?
So I've sold over 1,200 homes in about 20 years. And in Lakeview alone, I've sold over 300 houses just in the community.
Can I cancel our agreement?
The answer is yes, you can cancel an agreement. However, you have to look at the contract. It is a legally binding contract. So if there is, usually we can say that you can cancel it at any time, but we always want to know why, and if there's always a follow-up. So there's different reasons why someone will cancel it. So whether it's a personal reason or they're simply not happy, but absolutely you can cancel your contract.
When we work together, how often will we communicate?
We're going to communicate. I always say it's like dating. So what it is we can communicate every day, and other people want to have more hands off. But when it's go time, if you're a buyer and we're actively looking, or if you're a seller, we also communicate somewhat almost every day.
What makes you different from other agents?
Well, in my opinion, I've been doing this for about 20 years. I come from a background of doing project management. So I look at these as little projects that I'm not a salesperson, but more how do we help buyers and sellers bring the whole selling process together. And in doing that, number one, listen to your clients. Second, use the experience that we've had to say, look, how do you know what question to ask if you don't know what to ask? We've gone through this thousands of times. So why would you choose me as your realtor? Well, one is I have over 20 years of experience. Second, I've sold thousands of homes. Third, I have a lot of repeat business. So obviously families tell their friends and families about me. So there must be something in that trust level, but also the experience. And I just want to make sure that when we go through the process, that I'm listening to my clients, to listening what their needs are, and then finding a solution to make it happen.
How can I get more money for my home?
A lot of times people ask, am I going to get more money or less money? And that really depends on how we market the house and where you start, because there's different approaches on every sale. For an example, if we have a range, there's a low range and a high range. Some people normally always want to start high. So the danger with that is if you start high, I always say it's up to you. There's your price, my price, and the market price. So if you start high, realistically, I'll say your odds of selling are quite low. So you're obviously going to get a lower price, which is going to change your aspect ratio. If you underprice it for a reason, sometimes there's a strategy where you do that, where you underprice it, knowing you're going to get into a competing offer and you're going to get a higher price. So there's different reasons and timing, and that sometimes depends on the individual's scenario and sometimes it depends on the market. And for example, say it's a tear down house in an area that's very highly desired and it has people that are looking. So what we do is we'll sometimes underprice it a little bit, knowing we're going to get the interest, we're going to get likely less conditions, and the price will also get bid up. So it's better to have 2 or 3 buyers interested in your house than having it high price and just having no plan and just hoping that someone comes along.
What was a time when a deal went wrong and you were able to save the day?
So the one scenario is I was helping another realtor recently on a closing with their clients, and what happened is the house wasn't in the same condition as when they bought it. So we found something else. And what we had to do is we had to work through the clients, the other realtor, and also the lawyers to make sure that everything was stayed on track so the transaction would happen, but we also resolved the problem. And most of the time when things go wrong in the deal, if something happens. So for example, maybe your health changes or someone dies before. So sometimes we've had deals where people's scenarios change from the time they put in the offer to the closing, and in some cases they're resolvable in most cases, and in some cases you have to find a way that it basically keeps all the parties, I guess, happy, or that we have a resolution to keep things moving forward. So if a deal falls apart, how do we try to put together another deal or get it back on the market with the least amount of downtime?
Will I be working with you directly, or will I be working with your team?
So 90% of the time, 99% of the time, when you're working with me, I'm your person. The only reason why you may not be working with me is in the rare case that I am either sick or out of town, but we have a team and team members that would also help and back us up.
If you like this video, please subscribe and watch for more of these videos just like this one here for more frequently asked questions and answers. I'm Ron Garneau. We'll see you next time.